Good morning, guys. MWUSA Season 3, Episode 130. It is Monday morning, and I am on my way to work. But let me catch you up here on what happened and how I got here. So when I let you go last, I believe it was Saturday, something like that. I think it was Saturday. So here's what happened since then. Off the top of my mind here. First thing I want to mention, episode 128, the second and third sections I believe are out of order. So I talk about one thing and then I contradict myself because they're out of order. The first one was I thought something was going to happen, and the second one is something did happen. But I had it backwards because I had to record the sections separately and didn't name them properly. So that happened there. So let me think here. One thing that happened is when we got back from Canada on one of the segments of the trip, we got searched when my wife bought some maple syrup, and they thought it was alcohol because they don't want you to drink the alcohol because they want you to buy alcohol from them. But then on a different segment returning from Canada, we bought a knife, which is rather large, and that was in the bag, but they did not ask us about the knife. They just let the knife go, which was kind of interesting. The maple syrup triggered a security search, but not the knife. One thing I noticed is in that area of Canada where we were, there was no beef jerky, but there was endless salmon jerky. I mean, I'm talking about any flavor that you could ever imagine of salmon jerky. It was there. So I believe the part that I let you go at last was right before we visited Victoria. So it was like Friday night that I let you go. Or Saturday afternoon, we were on our way to Victoria. So when we got to Victoria, Canada, we got off the ship, and they don't ask us for a passport. They don't ask us for anything. We just use the ship's card to leave. And when we got back on the ship, they didn't ask us for a passport. They just asked us for our card, and we got right back on the ship like it was nothing. So that was kind of interesting. And the security that we went through on the way back was practically nothing. So, I mean, you could have smuggled anything you wanted in. I didn't even empty my pockets. I walked through, I didn't have any metal in my pockets, and they just let me go. So that was kind of crazy. One thing about Victoria, when we got there, there was all kinds of shuttles that would take you to the city, or you could take a taxi, or you could take these little things that are pulled by a guy like on a bicycle. And so we looked at the shuttle first, and it was $15 per person, Canadian, I think, or 13 US, which 15 Canadian's a lot better deal. And then we just looked at if we were going to get pulled by a bicycle, and these guys wanted $105 a person to pull us into town, so that wasn't happening. So then we looked at a taxi, and a taxi saved us. It was $15 Canadian for the whole carload, so we could have had 4 people for $15 and definitely get there earlier than a shuttle, which had a huge line, or getting pulled by some guy on a bicycle. So we'll talk about tourist trap and all this. So I think I talked about the US dollar and the Canadian dollar, how everybody was using US dollars even though we were in Canada, and they were giving them parity for it, which is equal, and that was just terrible to watch. Everywhere you went, they just took it as the same as a Canadian dollar. So for example, a place that makes 10% profit normally is now making 47% profit because of the 37% difference in the money. So good for them, I guess. In Canada, they have something called beaver tails, and a beaver tail is basically like an elephant ear, but it's smaller and it's lighter. The batter makes it lighter. So my wife had one of those. I wasn't really that interested in trying it. Another thing we noticed was when we were in that city in Victoria, all the businesses were closed. We got there at like 8 p.m. Everybody was closed. So we're walking in this area, this touristy area. There's only a few businesses open here and there. So I thought that was a poorly planned situation. We took a brief walk through there, bought a few things. Everything was sky high prices, like a lady's hat, like a straw hat that I would get at the dollar store where I live for like $1.25 was $105 or $109. It's just ridiculous. So we bought very little from there. We bought some candy, stuff that we don't have normally. We bought some tea. That was really about it. Let me think here. We got back to the ship. We had a nice dinner. I actually ordered filet that day. Most of the restaurants are free, but now there's a new thing where they have a few things on the menu where you can pay for them. And there was an 8-ounce filet on there for $20. So I couldn't resist that. My wife got the same thing. That was good. And we went to sleep. We woke up. It was Sunday morning. It was the day that we had to leave. And our time to leave was between 9 and 9:30. So got out of bed, got showered and dressed and everything, and went down to have our last breakfast before we left. And we noticed that the whole crew had been changed. Everybody, we must have picked people up in Victoria, and then they must have slept on the boat, and then woke up the next morning and they were working. The other team must have been, sleeping, getting ready to disembark the boat. So we had one last breakfast, and then we left the ship. So at this point, we're back in Seattle, and I can tell you Seattle was a disgusting mess when we got back. We had a really long walk to this market that my wife wanted to go to. It was like uphill and uphill and uphill, up steps, uphill. We finally got to this market, this famous older market. They have fish market in there. They have some stores in there. And honestly, everything was overpriced. Crab was like $69.99 a pound. Fish was way more expensive than it is at home, and just not the best area. It was very crowded. The people that were there made you want to like hold on to your bags so you don't get robbed. It was really a bad situation, and it was kind of like a dark cloud was over the city, and we couldn't understand what was going on at first. But we walked up this alley. It was like a 30-degree road. I mean, it was very steep. We walk up, and there's a gum wall. What is a gum wall? A gum wall is where people stick their gum to the wall, and there's like 50 feet wide and 10 feet tall of people's gum. And one of the excursions you could book was a guy taking you on a tour of the city of Seattle. And we heard this guy talking about how 7 or 8 years ago they cleaned the wall, and it was 4 inches thick of gum, and it weighed 2,300 pounds when they cleaned the wall. Absolutely disgusting. And speaking of disgusting, it was disgustingly humid there, just awful. We were sweating like crazy. We sat in that fish market, the whole market area there. We found a couple benches and sat down there for a while and relaxed. And then we continued on. We found a restaurant. We were going to get some breakfast there, or some kind of like early lunch, because we were going to be flying out. We were really, frankly, looking for a place to sit and maybe just have something light. And we finally figured out how to get into this restaurant. Not very organized at all, kind of facing the water, and sat down. I ended up getting a clam chowder in a bread bowl, which I thought was really good, and she got a salad, and all that was good. And we just noticed that there was a lot of weird stuff going on in the city, a lot of very strange people. And then we figured out what was going on. There was a gay pride parade, and people go way over the top with this stuff. And I just wonder, when you have a 3 or 4 or 5 or 6-year-old kid and you're dragging them behind you in this parade, which is clearly adult, and you can disagree with me all you want, but The kinds of things that we were seeing were adult content, mostly nude people, just things that kids shouldn't be around. And I was glad that our kids weren't there. And frankly, that was a dark cloud that was hanging above us. And a lot of the stuff we saw was just wrong. And we saw some children with visitors to the city just couldn't believe what they were seeing. And I can tell you that the city did itself no favors with visitors, as people were fleeing the city like you wouldn't believe. We ended up at the airport 3.5 hours before our flight, and then our flight was delayed on top of that, but we just needed to get out of that area. So I had mentioned that on the first day or two of the trip that we had taken an Uber from the airport to the hotel, and then the next day from the hotel to the boat. And I had mentioned then where there was that discrepancy in the price. That's where I had the episode mixed up. But Uber was going to be $67 to the airport, or a cab was going to be about $41 or $42 through Uber. So what does that tell us? It tells us, in my opinion, that they're paying Uber drivers way too much, and now the cab drivers are getting the business again because wages are too high in the area, and people are actually going for a cab instead of an Uber. So that can't end good for the people who are working Uber in the city. And so I tried to order a cab through Uber, and after 10 minutes it still didn't have one. And then I noticed there was a line of cabs right in the street there. So I walked up to one and I asked them the price, and it was about the same as the Uber. And so I took the cab and canceled the Uber. Another thing in Seattle was I noticed that everything had an 11% tax. 11% is ridiculous. And like most of the places in Canada that we went to were either 0% or 5% tax. And that may have been, well, the 5% was like legit stores, and the 0% was like people just selling stuff. And of course, those were some of the people who were also taking advantage of the prices with the dollar and the Canadian dollar. But really, all the shops were taking advantage of that one-to-one. So in Seattle, we sat around and waited a lot of the time, got something to drink, and just hung out and talked and caught up on stuff, and talked about what we were going to do when we got home. We finally flew to Chicago, and the plane from Seattle was delayed, and then the plane from Chicago was delayed, which is lucky because we almost missed it because it was just so late by the time the other plane landed. But we were able to switch to the correct plane in time, and this plane only had about 60 people on it, and it was a giant plane. I think it could fit like 180 people or something like that. Let me think here. Probably 30 times 6, yeah, so about 180 people. It was scarcely populated, and they spread everybody out, but I was able to get a nice exit row and nobody sitting next to me, so that was nice to have some space. And I noticed that I wasn't feeling great, and I was stuffy, and this morning it's much worse, so I took some Mucinex, and I'm heading to the office. And I'd already used sick time for this trip, so I don't want to use any more sick time. And I'm so far behind on stuff that I just need to catch up. So anyway, like I said, right now it's Monday morning, and I'm heading off to the office, and I have an early meeting. The goal this morning was to go to a casino early, but didn't get home till 3 a.m. due to all the delays. So I did not wake up in time. But I got up, took a shower, got ready, and going to work. Today's goal is going to be to hit the casino, I guess, once, maybe, possibly twice. But I just don't know how crushed I am with work until I get in there. Nice day today, 61 degrees and sunny skies. The whole trip, really, was about 60 degrees for the most part, 55 to 60 everywhere we went. So we were very lucky to just have good weather all the way through. And I can say Norwegian knows what they're doing. I was a little disappointed a few times with the food and a few times with the service as far as the food as well. But they were just jam-packed all the time. And I noticed that the new ships that they're making are going to actually hold less people, which is good because this boat held about 4,000 or more people. And the new ones that they're going to build, the new series that they're going to start building, it's only going to hold about 3,000 people. So, some tips I can give you if you're going to be traveling on Norwegian, and especially to Alaska. Going to Alaska, go in the spring, summer like we just did. I think that's going to be your best bet. You're going to have the best weather and the best opportunities to explore and get around and see things. And you'll still see tons of whales and bears and eagles and otters and orcas and everything else that you want to see, but you're not going to be freezing to death while you're doing it. I can say with Norwegian, if you can use a casino trip, definitely do that. We're advantage players here. You might be able to figure out a way to get a free casino trip, even if you don't have tons of points, by using either a credit card offer and getting 20 or 50,000 points. Places like Caesars have days where you're 5x or 10x on points. If you get a 10x day, you can get a lot of points quickly. I just urge you to read the rules because sometimes you can only get that multiplier on 5,000 or 10,000 base points. So don't waste your time getting too many. When you book the Norwegian stuff, you definitely want to try to get at least a room with a window, if not a balcony room. You're going to have a better experience. Definitely get up early, get up at night to check machines and play at the casino. Try not to play too many cards if you're going to be counting cards, because they do keep track of all kinds of stuff. They have the RFIDs, and you don't want to get caught and then get burned with your casino. So I just got a email from my boss whose daughter is sick, so they're not going to be in. So I guess that's one positive thing for the day. Just overall, with Norwegian, just watch the fees. You don't need to get an internet package. Most of the time, they'll give you 150 free minutes. One thing that we screwed up on was that I didn't notice until the last day that you could get a calling package for $10 per person for the whole trip, it looked like. So if there's two of you, you could each get it, pay $20, and you could call each other on the ship. And then I think you could call offshore with that too. That would definitely be a benefit. Let me think here. What else? Food places. I really wouldn't pay for the food. Now that they have a few items on the regular free menus that are a la carte, I would do that. Get yourself a nice filet or something else. And just go to those free restaurants and take advantage of that. The pay restaurants are like $59.99 a person, and then you can get a package and get 2, 3, 5, 7, whatever meals. I wouldn't do it. And I noticed some people were stuck with their meals because they had excursions they went to, couldn't get back in time to get a dinner or a lunch, and they ended up buying too many and then not being able to use it. And if you buy a meal package with like 5 meals in it, let's say, and you've only used 4, you cannot give one to someone who is traveling with you. So be careful of that. Don't end up getting burned on that. And then also when we ordered a la carte, we only paid $20. So why pay 59 or 49 or whatever it averages out to if you get multiple meals? when you could just order what you want and it's going to be cheaper than that. So be mindful of that. The other thing is drink packages, and there's multiple layers of drink packages. I think the cheapest is like 129 a person, and that gets you soda and water. Um, I know I don't know what the expensive alcohol stuff is because I don't drink it. But also, the first time we were invited on board, I noticed they gave us free beer with a Norwegian card that they had given us. You just show it to the waitress and they give you free beer. Didn't use it much, but you might want to ask about that when you first get on. See if, because it's your first time, because you got invited by a casino, if you could get that. So I don't know if you can tell, but I'm feeling pretty run down. I don't know what's going to happen today. I'm going to get in the office right now and try to work. Hopefully, I don't fall flat on my face. But I'm just feeling awful. I hope by the end of the day I'm feeling better because I got a lot of work to do this week, and I've had some weeks cut a lot lately. Um, and then I didn't notice that this week is July 4th, so my normal Wednesday, Thursday, and I was supposed to actually um, do some other stuff on Thursday. Looks like it's going to get canceled, and it might just be a Wednesday and back late night Wednesday, early Thursday for July 4th, and then head back out on Friday. So maybe a short week. Before I went on my trip, I was like exactly where I needed to be for the month. I was at like plus 125 or 126,000 for the year, and the trip didn't disappoint too much. I only expected to make 1,000 or two on the trip. I ended up making $3,764. So that was definitely good. So I'm still right about where I need to be for the year. But this week is going to be tough, so I may fall slightly behind my targets, but everything is still good. I just got to stay focused and doing the right things. I don't know if this trip recharged me or not, especially since I came back feeling a little down, but we'll find out, and hopefully we find a way to have a good week this week. So I'm not going to make this episode too long. I still, people tell me they like these episodes that are non-gambling episodes so much, but I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. But I hope you got something out of it. If you have questions for cruises with NCL, let me know. I've gone on 3 of these now, and I'm kind of good at answering those questions. I'm happy to help you out. And if you have any questions or comments on anything else, also, my email is mwusa21 at gmail.com. mwusa21 at gmail.com. See you next time.